Hello everyone, this is Mr. Nightmare here, and today we'll continue reading Grin, Chapter 7. Before we get started, please hit that like button, comment, subscribe to this channel if you guys want more creepypasta fanfictions out there. Until then, let's get started. In a haze of drowsiness and a beautiful sleep, I managed to hear my name being called. It was in a low whisper, but rushed in a way that's telling me that this person was either irritated or confused. It was quiet for the moment as I decided to forget that I heard it. After all, I was so comfortable right now, and yet tired. Yes, very tired. The voice called again, this time more persistent and forceful. What? I groaned heavily as I nearly pried my eyes open. That's when I realized I was still on the floor, curled up. Goosebumps covered my skin due to the lack of blanket down there. My eyes were blurry as I tried to look around, tried to figure out what was going on. I noticed my window was open, a slight breeze moving from the black drapes forming lightly. The night sky was bright due to the nearby of the full moon, and the twinkling stars shine, the soft rays of light entering through the window, filling over my canvas and chair. It was most likely a clear shadow of the figure that was standing in the corner of my room. My eyes forced open in it, focused on it, instantly recognizing the masked figure who it was. His head was cocked and his black tousled hair filled to the side. I hurriedly pulled myself up off the floor. My dark red hair was more like a mess, but I didn't necessarily cared about it at this moment. I grimaced as a pain restricted or shot through my stomach, but I refused to show it. I paused, my lips started as I stared at the bloody painter awkwardly. Hi? I chuckled, rubbing the back of my head, or heels.
Any particular reason you decided to sleep on the floor?
He scoffed. Well, yeah. No, it's just kind of there, I muttered, shrugging. I heard him sigh, along with a shake of his head.
Ah, well, we have more important business to attend to then. Discussing this, are you ready to begin?
Yep, I am, I said a bit too cheerfully.
Wonderful. I've already gathered the blood, so your job comes next.
He nodded and stared towards the window. I followed, easily climbing out behind him into the cool night air. He twisted before stopping altogether.
Oh, pardon me, I almost forgot.
He chuckled to himself. He reached into one of his pockets of his blue jacket and pulled out what it looks like to be a black blindfold. I looked at him questioningly, one of my eyebrows rising. Is this really necessary? I muttered as he quickly placed the cloth over my eyes, tying it in the back.
Yes, it is, Jehovah. I don't know if you can be trusted just yet, especially knowing where I reside. You could run to the cops and tell them for all I know. It's just a safety precaution for now. In time, I'm sure it will no longer be an issue.
His voice replied reassuringly. My eyes scanned around, but all I saw was complete darkness, as I felt his hand take a hold of my arm and started forward at a slow rate. It didn't make me feel quite nervous, but with the memories of earlier today, I really didn't care what was going to happen. It was like an adventure. After all, I'm going to live it as the best I can. I focused on my hearing instead, listening intently to the sounds, the cracking and snapping of occasional frogs, the gust of wind that sent my hair back, causing goosebumps to rise on my skin. Once more, and the soft pattern of our feet on the ground as he pulled me forward, not once crossing or stepping on the road. I would have noticed a different sound, and but it has yet to change. It was smooth grass that was thick to my ankles. Eventually, however, we went into a new setting. It was a forest, I'm sure. The twigs now snapping under my feet, the loose stones and rocks being kicked up from the dirt by my snuffing shoes, small lumps of grass in my right arm. The bloody painter blocked my left. Suddenly he pulled me towards him, causing a gas to fly out of my mouth.
Sorry.
I heard him mumble, starting forward again.
You just about ran into a tree.
He chuckled. I sighed, wishing I had my sight, but I understood his caution. He couldn't know for sure I wouldn't tell. Hell, I would knew there was no one I was going to tell, although I just had to prove it to him. And tonight was the test, number 1. We finally came to a stop, his hand finally releasing my arm. There were sounds of the keys twisting into a lock, and the satisfying pop as it unlocked, with a old creak of the door swinging open on its rusty hinges. His hand was back once more and guided me forward. Through the doorway, I heard the door twisting close. The bloody hand was gone again. I waited for a moment, slight panic coursing through me due to one of my senses being blocked and the bloody painter not holding my arm. That's when I heard a stake of a match. Several bad thoughts ran through my brain due to the sound. Could he be trying to kill me by lighting this place on fire, locking me in with it? But then the blindfold was removed from my head, and then the first thing I saw, of course, were candles that were lit, offering light into the dark room. Of course, there was no light due to no electricity bills being paid. How is he even staying here? My eyes grazed over in the small cabin, taking every detail. The only furniture in the room were old rusted couches with a small clip on the table to its side. It lifted vanilla candles laying on top of it, offering a small circle of light in the room. Moths eating the navy drapes hanging out over the window, blocking the outside from looking in. A matching rug laid on the floor, contrasting with the old gray wood which made the walls and floor. The TV to the side was properly busted. Its plus lazy laying on its side not even on the wall. A porcelain scratch laid across the screen. I paused, my lips glad that at least it didn't take the match to stick here. By looking around, we would think so.
You'll be working here for tonight.
He nodded and walked towards the next room. I noticed the doorway to the left and peeked inside, seeing a small kitchen. There was a slightly grumbly refrigerator. I'd hardly be in shock if it worked. Mold grew along the faded white, matching the stove and sink in the bar. However, considering of the violent food, a loaf of bread, apples, cereal, hell, there's even a few candy bars, chips, and a slim container of soda. If he had been working on the refrigerator, he would have enjoyed something cold to drink instead of hot. I shrugged my shoulders, and turning towards the exit from the room, I hurried forward to where he had gone. Coming to a stop where he was waiting, laying back on another battered couch, his head looking up where I was standing. The few candles that he had lit offered some light in the room. In front of him was a coffee table. It was reasonably large, a thin bucket laying on top of it. I knew exactly what was the bucket for. I gulped as I almost see the empty jar that was beside him. Along with syringes, how did he accomplish all of this? It was confusing me much how much he mean to do this all and remain uncaught. I needed some answers. Before we begin, could I ask you a few questions? I whispered, walking over and taking a better look. I saw the dark liquid in the bucket, undisturbed at the moment. Ask away, he nodded. Okay, how does the blood like that does not dry once you jar it? Doesn't it dry really fast?
Yes, blood usually does dry extremely fast. In fact, 1 drop of blood can completely dry within 20 minutes. Although the more there is, the more time you have. Also, if it is kept in motion, it does not dry as quickly. That is why I had this.
Standing from the couch, he walked over to the other side of the room, portraying a device that apparently looked foreign to me.
Don't look so shocked. This is what I call a rotator. Not as fancy as some modern designs, but it works all the same. It has room for 3 jars to be strapped in and set within these holders.
He explained.
See, each time I gather blood, I get around 1.5 gallons. Each human has 7% of the body weight turn out to be blood. So the bigger they are, the more I get. Although, that is more work. So with that 1.5 gallons being usual, each jar contains half a gallon. Basically, this rotator is made to contain all the blood from a single person.
I stared at him with wide eyes. He was really thought this all through, but I was surprised he would be the blood expert. How does that thing rotate? I asked, wanting to know more.
Well, when all the jars are placed on it equally apart with almost the same weight, they make it move through a continuous cycle. The flat circular top where the jars are connected to the bottom in a way that makes it pivot. Basically, it is connected there so it won't come apart, but is able to move freely with various weight. For example,
he murmured, grabbing 3 empty jars and placing them all in the holsters. And I watched and at it and started to protrude at an angle like it was like a roller coaster in a way. I shook my head, not understanding it well. Alrighty then, I chuckled, shaking my head. How long does your jars last?
Since I use them so frequently, I give them a week at most. Then again, that's when it dries and starts to crisp around the edges. Anyway, are you ready to begin?
He asked, walking back over to the tin bucket. I nodded and walked over, sitting beside him. He picked up a jar and a syringe, about to demonstrate.
All you have to do is dip the syringe into the bucket and pull up the end so it draws in the blood. Then put the tip over the jar and push the tip back in. Simple as that.
He started as I watched as the blood considered into the jar from the syringe. Alright, that seems easy. I chuckled, taking the syringe and the jar he offered me.
It is, but very boring indeed.
Dipped the syringe and mimicking what he just showed me. It was an easy task, and I was careful not to drop any of the red crimson liquid. So how exactly do you do this, if you don't mind me asking? I started taking another content.
Same reason you agreed.
He chuckled.
Malice towards people, a hatred towards society. Partially, I also enjoy the dark art that is formed from it. Painting with blood, it's just so fascinating.
He purred. I could tell he was smiling even though he was wearing a mask.
I would just take blood from myself, but I would need so much more than I would be able to take at a time. Not to mention, it would be easier to get the job done all at once. Not to mention, I have to worry about money.
He chuckled. How does that work, getting food from yourself?
Simple. I gather the food from the victim's house, or I just take the money that they have on their person. I can't necessarily walk into a store, but it is convenient to have if I ever need it.
I nodded to myself. He was very witty. I just do not know if having me as an accomplice is how you are not going to get caught.
Simple. Be observant. Look around your environment to make sure there's no one you can see. Avoid the windows or doorways if possible. Look in the shadows and stay out of the public eye. It's all that. Not saying I haven't run from the police before.
He chuckled.
Heh. Still, they've never caught me.
I nodded once more, continuing with my work. He was sure a strange man, yet so interesting at the same time. I wondered yet again what exactly I got myself into, although he seemed calm, mildly and interesting, snarky and lurking in his mind. I just haven't seen him that way yet. For sure, his little signs of being in the beginning, like the smiling face on the window, the jar of blood, showed he wasn't sane. I haven't seen him act like in person yet. That, though, alone terrified me, for what was to come. To see the bloody painter lose it. I mentally shivered at the thought. One important question stirred in my mind. What's your name? I know they call you the bloody painter, but what's your real name? He was silent for a moment, thinking over my question until he finally shook his head.
That is a question for another time.
He replied blankly. I sighed at the sea of questions still trembling in my mind. There was a lot of his paintings I saw in the other room. Probably a bedroom. So in there, even though with so much blood he goes through, he does cart all the paintings or drawings around when he moves into a new town. How does he get the canvases? How does he even come into possession in this place anyway? What would happen if the cops found it or tried to investigate inside? So many questions. All for another time. I let out a deep sigh and turned back to the bucket of blood. I barely made a dent in the containment so far. This was going to be a long night.